In the 21st century, there have been 11 botched executions in the US. Here are the inmates, their crimes, and what happened at their execution. Joseph Louis Clark, 2006. Lethal injection. The execution took nearly 90 minutes. Clark was sentenced to die on November 28, 1984, for the murder of 22-year-old David Manning during a gas station holdup in Toledo, though he also confessed to the separate murder of a convenience store employee. Angel Nieves Diaz, 2006. Lethal injection. He needed an additional dose of drugs to be executed. The full process took approximately 34 minutes, as opposed to the usual 7.5 minutes. A post-mortem examination revealed that Diaz's IVs were improperly inserted past his veins to his subcutaneous soft tissue. Nieves, who had escaped from a prison in Puerto Rico while serving time for murder, was convicted of shooting and killing the manager of a strip club in Florida in 1979. He maintained his innocence until his death. Barzan Ibrahim al-Tikriti, 2007. He was scheduled to be executed by hanging. He was decapitated as a result of an error in the calculations, resulting in him being dropped too far. He was one of 3 half-brothers of Saddam Hussein and the leader of the Mukhabarat, the Iraqi intelligence service. Despite falling out of favor with Saddam at one time, he was believed to have been a close presidential advisor at the time of his capture by US forces. On 15th of January 2007, Barzan was hanged for crimes against humanity. Romel Broom, 2009. Lethal injection. He cried in pain after receiving 18 needle sticks during a 2009 botched execution that was called off after 2 hours. A second execution was later scheduled for 2022, but he died in prison in 2020 before it could be carried out. Broom was convicted of murder, kidnapping, and rape. He was sentenced to death for the 1984 murder of 14-year-old Trina Middleton. Dennis McGuire, 2014. Lethal injection. Executed using a new untried and untested legal drug combination and took over 25 minutes to die. During the execution, witnesses reported that McGuire could be seen struggling to breathe and reportedly gasped loudly while making snorting and choking sounds for at least 10 minutes. He was sentenced to death on December 8, 1994 for the 1989 rape and murder of 22-year-old Joy Stewart. Stewart disappeared on February 11, 1989, and her body was found by 2 hikers the following day in the woods near Bantas Creek. An autopsy was performed and it was determined she had died from having her throat cut by a knife which had severed her carotid artery and jugular vein. Clayton Lockett, 2014. Lethal injection. He was observed convulsing and attempting to speak for 43 minutes after the drugs were administered. He groaned, convulsed, and spoke during the process and attempted to rise from the execution table 14 minutes into the procedure, despite having been declared unconscious. Ultimately, he died of a heart attack. Lockett, age 38, was convicted in the year 2000 of murder, rape, and kidnapping. Joseph Wood, 2014. Lethal injection. Instead of the usual 10 minutes with 1 dose being sufficient to kill him, he underwent a 2-hour injection procedure in which he was injected with the drug cocktail 15 times. Wood gasped and snorted for 1 hour and 57 minutes after the drugs were injected. Wood had been convicted of murder and assault after shooting dead his estranged girlfriend, Deborah Dietz, and her father, Eugene Dietz, on August 7, 1989. Alva Campbell, 2017. Lethal injection. Executioners were unable to find a suitable vein. A second attempt was scheduled for 2019, but he died in prison from natural causes in 2018. He was convicted of the 1997 murder of 18-year-old Charles Dials, from which he stole a car and forced him to drive him around for 3 hours before eventually killing him. Campbell committed this crime while attempting to escape prison, as he had already been convicted for another murder committed in 1972. Doyle Lee Ham, 2018. Lethal injection. He was stabbed with needles for more than 2.5 hours as the execution team tried to locate a suitable vein. The execution failed. The state of Alabama later agreed not to attempt to execute him again as part of a confidential statement, thus de facto reducing his sentence to life imprisonment without parole. He died of cancer, which had contributed to the botched execution, in prison in 2021. He was convicted and sentenced to death for the 1987 murder of Patrick Cunningham, who he killed while committing a robbery. John Marion Grant, 2021. Lethal injection. Most witnesses observed Grant convulsing, straining against his restraints, struggling to breathe, and vomiting. He took 21 minutes to die. His autopsy showed that the execution drugs caused him to suffer flash pulmonary edema. Grant was sentenced to death for the 1998 murder of prison cafeteria worker Gay Carter. Joe Nathan James Jr., 2022. Lethal injection. He took 3 hours to die, which may be a record. There have been no official statements regarding what happened during the 3 hours, and it was not clear if the inmate was still conscious when he was administered the lethal injection. Joe Nathan James was sentenced to death for his role in the 1994 killing of his former girlfriend Faith Hall. He entered her apartment and shot her. That's all for today, my friends. See you next time. Bye bye.